Okay, fine. In the last session, we completed up to business unit creation. Okay, done. Say, for example, in EBS, it could be 11A or release 12. Say, we created one operating unit, OU. After creating the operating unit, can we do the OU mod? I mean, see, when you talk about operating unit is specific to payables, receivables, say purchasing, order management, project costing, project billing, and many other applications. So once you create the operating unit, can we do the setups? Can we do the implementation for any application for any operating unit or not? So I'm creating OU1. With the OU1 operating unit 1, can we do the setups for payables, receivables, purchasing, OM, project costing, billing, or do we have certain restrictions to use that operating unit to complete respective application related configuration? Anyone, please? In EBS, if you create one operating unit, can we use that operating unit? Can we do the configuration for that OU for any application or not? Any application means which applications are OU specific? Can we do or not? Hope everyone can hear me. Just give me a second. I'll switch to other network. Connected. Fine. Anyone, please?
After creating, I think we had to assign in the MO operating unit profile option.
See, I'm not talking about assigning MO operating unit profile option. I'm not asking can we record the transactions. Before recording the transaction, you have to complete OU specific setups, right? To implement
Yeah.
any application. My question is, can we do the configuration for any application for any OU? Say I have applications like AP, R, PO, OM, project costing, project billing, and many other applications. Say I created OU1. Can we do all these application configuration for OU1? Can we implement all these applications for OU1 or not? I'm talking about EBS. EBS can be 11A or R12. So after creating the operating unit 1, can we do the configuration for all these applications or not? So you create a responsibility for all those applications. Can we do the setups or is there any some kind of control we have in the system or is there any other mechanism?
Hello.
Yeah, please.
AR setup is possible.
Possible, yes.
Hello. Yeah, AR related setup is possible, but AP related setup is it's not possible because we have to link with the inventory arc in
No,
financial
no, no.
financial option.
See, not correct. That is a linking as a part of configuration. Whatever needs to be done. We can do it. I'm not talking about connectivity integrations. Just it's all about if you want to implement accounts payables for OU1, you can go and set up payables options for OU1, right? You can set finance
Yeah,
options for OU1. You can define, say, distribution sets for OU1. This is how you can do the OU specific configuration for AP. You can do ER. You can do. Sorry, I written ER, AP again. ER, POOM, project costing, project billing. You can do setups for any application for this OU, because no restriction. That's how we have that provision in EBS case. But when you talk about Fusion, if you have one business unit, here in Fusion we are calling as business unit. Say we have a BU1. Say you want to implement all these modules in the Fusion application. So if you want to implement all these applications in Fusion, after creating the business unit level you have to give the permissions saying AP we want to implement for this BU1 and AR. When you create the BU1, you have to specify for BU1 which modules you want to implement. Say I am mentioning AP and AR, and you cannot do the PO setups for BU1 or OM setups for BU1, project costing or project billing related setups for BU1. So that's how we have a control. That means at the time of business unit creation only, after creating the business unit, before we start with the configuration, we can specify which modules we are going to implement for that BU. Those you can specify, so that system won't allow to implement other than selected modules. Okay, that we call as business unit business functions. When I talk about AP, in AP primarily we have two business functions. One is payables invoices, other one is payables payments. These two we have for payables. Receivables, one is billing, nothing but transaction process. The other one is customer payments. This we call as business functions. So when you create the business unit, say you are creating BU2, let's say BU1 only, let's take same example. You have a BU1. When you, after creating the BU1, you have to select whether you want to, for BU1 you want to implement payables invoice process or not. So payables invoice process. Other business function within the payables is payables payments. The other one is billing, and receivables, another function is customer payments. When you talk about purchasing, procurement, and say receiving, the P2P process. Okay. So these all we call as business functions as per business. Okay, the different functions will be performed by respective departments. So you are creating BU1. For BU1, which business functions you want to implement, you have to select. Say I'll select only payables invoice process as a yes, payables invoice process, payables payments, and billing yes, and customer payments yes. Now if you try to do the purchasing configuration for BU1, when you go to the purchasing related setups, the BU1 won't be available. The reason for BU1, we are not enabling procurement. The same way receiving, inventory side, receiving options, whatever you said, which will be corrected through inventory for those all won't be available, or else I don't specify these two also. Now in payables you can do only invoice related setups. The payment related configuration you cannot do it. And customer payments, that means receipt class, receipt methods you cannot create for BU1. Only you can create the billing related setups only. So at BU level you have option of selecting which business functions we want to implement for specific BU. This sort of control we have in the Fusion. First we have to specify which business functions we are going to implement for specific BU, so that system will allow us to do the setups for only those business functions for respective BU. So this is a point we have to understand. So any point of time you can enable additional business functions. Later you want to implement payments process also, customer payments, or you want to implement procurement also for BU1. Any point of time you can enable, so that system will allow you to do the setups for those respective business process. Okay. So these are the points we have to understand. Any questions on this, please? If no question, we'll go and see now. Any questions from anyone? So in EBS, we don't have a
Is
process, right? We don't set any controls. If you create one BU, that
right.
can be used in any application for any application configuration. Here we have a control. You have to decide. You can decide. You can restrict. Any questions here, please?
Uh, is this control newly added, or is it from the beginning? It is there in Fusion.
It's there from beginning. If something is there
Oh,
which is introduced in the latest versions and all, definitely I'll be addressing that. Okay, this is there
okay.
from beginning, right? From beginning, when they release the product, this mechanism we have. Fine. Any questions here, please?
Lakshman, not sure I understood the R12 part. In R12, apart from profile options, how do you
Don't
assign those?
talk about profile options. When we require profile option, you tell me. Primarily, that profile option, operating units or other assignments only required to record the transactions, right? To record the transactions, we need it. So I'm talking about just setup part. Yeah, of course, in the EBS,
So,
so some profile options we have to set to facilitate the configuration also. Yes, that is also there. But here the point is I'm talking about only setups. Only setups. Okay, if you want to handle the setup part, in EBS, you don't have any restrictions. Okay, you can go and do the setups for any operating unit, any module setups for any operating. If operating unit is available, see at the time of operating unit creation or after creating, we are not selecting somewhere this operating unit we can use for so and so application implementation only. But so that is not possible in EBS. But in Fusion, after creating the operating unit, you can decide this operating unit is going to have which business functions that you can specify. Accordingly, system will allow us to do the setups.
yeah, in EBS, we have for that responsibility, we have whatever restrictions on the functions or menus, right? If you want to add one, we can add. If you want to remove, we can remove. But it is at the responsibility menu
That we call a menu
setup.
exclusion. Menu exclusions, right?
Is it the same concept you're talking here?
No. I'm not talking about that concept. I'm talking about operating unit in EBS, the same in Fusion BU. I'm not talking about specific functionality. I'm talking about setups.
Okay, because here you're telling, payable invoice is a function, payable payment is a function. So for that view, you're enabling only payable invoice, means only you can do payable invoice, but you cannot do payable payments.
Yes.
So it's something like restricting that function, right?
Yeah.
Say even at the user level, there is some exclusion, right? Likewise, you are excluding at the business unit level, is it?
See, it's not like excluding that part will come into the picture whether that user require access to that functionality or not. This is not functionality. This is not a specific function. This is it's kind of a complete invoicing process and payment process. So here to implement, so in the menu exclusion, in the responsible level, whatever you exclude, you don't want to allow that responsibility to have action. Here it's all about setups. If I don't select it, you cannot do the payable setups. That's what I'm saying. Payables payment setups you cannot do. If I set to no, for BU1 you cannot implement payables now. But that is different. After implementing, whether that responsibility require access to that or not, that you can decide.
Okay. So this is for at a setup control, whether
setup.
you can know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not talking about process. Okay. If you want to implement payables or not, if you want to implement set to yes, these two. Then for BU1 payables can be implemented. If you set to no for billing and customer payments, that means you are not going to implement receivables for BU1. If you go to receivable setups, say receivables, we have a system options. If you go to system options, we have to set the system options for every operating unit in EBS, right? So in this scenario,
Yeah.
In this scenario, if you go to receivable system options, in receivable system options you don't find BU1. BU1 is not provisioned for receivables by enabling these two functions. Okay, so this is how we can set these business functions. Any questions here?
So in EBS,
Yeah.
in EBS, such a restriction is not available, right? It is open availability in EBS, correct?
Yes. There is no restriction. So that operating unit would be available to implement any application. But here you can decide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Done. You can decide very granular level. Here, not only just application level, within the application, what are the functional areas we have? You can say only invoice process can be implemented, not payment process. Only billing process can be implemented, not customer payment process. Okay. In procurement side, you can specify requisition process is not applicable for BU1, only procurement process. Or else other BU you can say this BU can involve only in the requisitioning process, not in the procurement process, not in receiving process.
This ultimately cascades from the offering we give, correct?
Sorry?
This cascades from the offering we give, correct?
Yeah, offerings is the one, like within the offering you don't have like this classification, right? Payables invoice process or payable payment process. Offering you can have an option called as payables only, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So when you are using the financial offering, within that you may have 10 business units, right? Which business unit is going to involve in which business process, that you can decide with these functions. Business functions, these are the different business functions. Which BU will be involving in which business functions, you can decide. Okay, we'll see where you can set, okay, how to assign our primary ledger to business unit, that we'll go and see now. Okay.
Lakshman, when you're saying payable invoice or you're saying payable payments, does that mean payable invoice setup, or are we talking about payable invoice setup and okay, it's only setup?
Here
Is
we are
there a
talking
way
about setup. When I say only payables invoice, yes, you can do the payable invoice related setups. When you do the payable invoice related setup, system will allow you to work on payable invoice process. First, if you set to yes, then only you can do the setup. Once you're done with the setup, system will allow you will be able to work on the process also. To work on the payables invoice process, we have to assign the separate roles to the user. That's a different again. Here the point is, you want to implement, you want to do the setups for this BU for which application and which process.
So, can we assign more than one BU for payable invoice setup? Like if I want one person to do all the
separate setup for each BU separately, you have to enable specify payables invoice process. In one place you cannot.
We cannot assign one person to do all the BU setups like quickly. We have to do one by one for each BU.
You need to assign also. That assignment is not required. You can tell to someone just you complete setups for this 10 BUs. Okay. BU level assignments we don't have for setups for specific user consultants. That is all about we have to manage as a part of project activity and assignments. Within the system, you cannot say so. You have BU1, you go and do the BU1 setups. You just do it for BU2. This specification you cannot do in the application level. Okay, fine. We'll just go and see this how it works. Then if you have any questions, we'll discuss. Okay, so we created location for business unit and we created business unit. Now we are going to assign business unit business functions. Say assign business unit business functions. So for business unit, we are going to assign business functions. To this business unit, you can assign business functions like this. So which business unit is going to involve in which business functions, that you have to assign or say you have to enable. We'll see that. To perform this setup you can do only from the project. Okay, you can do only from the project. we'll see this, then if you have any questions we'll discuss. Okay, first we'll complete this. If you have any question, definitely we can talk on that. Yeah, fine. Just go to implementation project. This setup you can do only from the implementation project. You cannot do directly from search window, which is nothing but FSM home page. Few setups you can do from search page. From here you can go to search, you can search for any task you can perform, but not all tasks. So which is required scope selection, those you cannot do from here. That should be done from the project. So go to implementation project, manage implementation projects, just click on overview and open the project and search for the task called as assign business unit business functions. Okay, the name you can say as a function only, reality functions. You can search with the same name, more or less it is very similar. So search with that. I'll say business unit business functions. Assign business unit business functions, same, that's what we searched, no issues. So task name is assign business unit business function. Just click on the task and here scope selection is mandatory. You want to assign business functions for which BU you have to select. This is possible only from the project. Directly from the search window you cannot do it. Just click on go to task icon. There is one more option from where you can do the scope related setups, that also I'll take you through. Okay, generally we do from project only. So we want to specify the business functions for our BU, right? So which BU that you have to select. So select the value as a select and add, then click on apply and go to task. So here our BU name is Google, right? Search and select. When you are selecting this record, you just place cursor here and click this section, or else you can place cursor here and you can click. Don't click on the name. If you click on the name, it will open the business unit definition page where this BU is created. Don't click on the name. It will open that BU definition page. You just in the entire record level you can click here. By placing the cursor you can click on this, it will get selected, or else here we have a selection space. By placing the cursor you can click. Don't click on the name, it will open the BU definition page. Just select it, then click on save and close. Now system will select our business unit, Google US business unit. So try to do this setup from that home page, you can understand. So now we are trying to do from the project, but instead of doing from the project, if you try to do from here, so the task name is assign business unit business function. Click on this. Now it should ask us to select the BU, right? Where you must enter business unit ID. Okay, it's nothing but BU ID, right? So here you cannot do that. So some selected BU is defaulting, but you cannot select your BU. So that is the reason this setup you have to do from your project only. Wherever scope selection is mandatory, that you should perform only from the project. If not from project, what is the other place we can do this setup, that we'll discuss. But all the time we'll do from our project only. Fine. The business function name, the task name is assign business unit business function. Click on the task. So already we selected BU into our scope, right? We navigated, so system selected here. From next time onwards, just you can click on go to task icon. It will take us to or BU related business functions page only. So here is our business unit. Now you are going to implement which business functions for this BU, that you have to specify. These are the different business functions we have. Billing and revenue management, receivables, transaction process, and revenue management also, if you are going to implement along with this billing process, that you can enable it. And collection management means advanced collections, if you are implementing this, you can enable. Customer contract management, that's a totally different application. Customer payments means if you want to do if you are going to implement the receipt process for this BU, customer receipts, you can enable it. Expense management, if you enable, then for this BU you can implement fusion expenses, incentive compensation, material management, okay, and payables invoicing, payables payment, procurement, project accounting. If you are going to implement for this BU, you can enable. If you don't enable this project accounting here, you cannot do project costing and project billing setups. When you go to project costing billing related setups, there you don't see this BU. Okay, when you go to project accounting related setups, in those setups you don't see this business unit name if you don't enable here. In the same way, receiving, if you want to implement receiving like receipt process, a requisition process, or any other processes, you have to enable the business function. Then only system will allow you to do the setups. Once you do the setups, you can use the same for transaction purpose. So once setups are ready, you can perform the transactions. So from this page only we can assign our primary ledger to business unit. Okay, from this page only we can assign our primary ledger to business unit. So assign, first enable the business functions which are required. You can specify select specific business functions, or just you can enable all, so that you will be able to implement any business function for this BU. Okay, just enable all, or you can enable specific which you are going to implement. So instead of coming here every time based on which application setups we do, I'm just enabling all at a time. Even many are not required for us, just I'm enabling. Okay, now we have to assign our primary ledger to this business unit. Okay, we have to assign primary ledger to business unit. So our BU name, primary ledger name is Google primary ledger. Right, search and select. So with the Google primary ledger, legal entity is associated, the same will be defaulted here as a default legal entity. Okay, default legal entity, this is our primary ledger, this is the legal entity defaulted. This is just default legal entity. When you are recording the transaction, the particular application, if you have a scenario where one business unit is associated with multiple legal entities, there are some business scenarios where definitely you have to do that. In that case, you can switch from one BU, one LE to another LE when you are recording the transactions. This and all you can manage as workarounds. So here we have to assign our primary ledger to our business unit, and we have to specify default legal entity. This is how we have to complete this setup. So any questions here, please?
Yeah, Lakshman, just to confirm, you said this is a mandatory setup to enable the payment, invoice, all these things, in order to do this setups for payment and invoices and everything?
Yeah, that's what we are discussing, right? So if you want to do any application setup, you have to enable it. That means mandatory.
If we have multiple BUs, in that case, we are still coming on this form, and where can we select the different BU if we have multiple BUs in one primary?
In the scope selection, primary ledger case I explained, right? If you want to do the specify ledger options for other primary ledger, you have to click on scope value. It will ask us to select a different primary ledger. Here also different BU. If you want to see, once again I'll take you through that. Okay, here any questions? I'll show you that point again. So any questions here, please?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Here we see the below legal entity flag something.
Okay, below legal entities, this function is related to inventory, we have a profit center business units. When you are implementing the cost management, cost accounting as a part of SCM, okay, in that
Okay.
case you have to enable below legal entity. That means so only one legal entity would get associated with this business unit. In that case, we have to enable it. You just place cursor here. You'll see some pop-up that you can understand. See, place cursor on this. So indicates that the business unit is a profit center and it is operated under one legal entity only. So if you enable this, okay, at the time of inventory organization creation, you can select this business unit as a profit unit business profit center business unit. So in SCM point of view, that is required. Okay, for finance, it's not required. When you're defining the inventory organization, if you want to make it as a profit center business unit, when we are configuring the cost accounting, it's required. But we are not working on that SCM side. We are going to test P2P and O2C cycles, but that is not required for us.
Okay.
Right?
If you are not enabling this flag, you can use multiple legal entity for view.
Yeah, ideally you can use multiple. This is just default only. Even if you enable also you can use it, but this legal entity will be okay just fused with the legal entity in cost management point of view,
Okay.
not finance. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Fine. Any other questions here, please?
Yeah, Lakshman, one question. So the list of functions, what we are seeing here, will depend on the offerings which we selected.
No. So which functions you can manage at BU level Oracle provides. It is irrespective of your offerings which you select. See,
Say if
so
you
if you
selected
consider that
payment
point, just one
invoicing.
second. If you consider that point, so within our offering, within our project, we don't have project accounting, right? Right? We don't have project accounting.
Yeah.
We don't have material management. We don't have incentive compensation. Okay, right? There are many we don't have. These are not specific to our project. Whenever you navigate to this page with assign business unit business functions for any BU, all available business functions will listed here. You cannot add some new business functions here. These are the seeded, and within this only you can just do the implementation.
So here we'll be able to do the setups for projects also, even
Yes.
though
Yes. Yeah,
even though
that's
you
right.
have not selected. Okay.
If you enable just project accounting, along with the project accounting we have other applications, right? Project management, resource management, those applications also will be provisioned for configuration. Reality, in the project accounting only BU specific transactions we can record, costing or billing. Other management, resource management, those are just to manage the information. That is the reason that they didn't provide as a function here. You will be able to use those applications also if you enable project accounting, complete project suite, which we call here as a PPM. In Fusion, we are calling as PPM, project portfolio management. Within that only we have costing, billing, management, resource management, okay, task configuration, contracts, everything. Okay.
Lakshman, sorry, one last question. Uh, Yeah, actually, like you said, cloud is based on subscription based, right?
You are right.
So here, if we have not purchased the license for project like project management,
Yeah.
still you're selecting this option. In
Yeah.
that case, will you be able to do the setups for this? That's my question.
Yes, you can do the setups, but you cannot use for the process. They'll restrict the what I can say roles for those applications for which applications you don't have subscription. Okay, since
Okay,
these cloud environments will be controlled by Oracle only, they can set any restrictions.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Fine. So this is how like you have to set up business unit business functions for any BU, and you have to associate your primary ledger with the BU. Then say save and close. Say you have a multiple business units. So if you have multiple business units, what you have to do? If you want to set for other business unit, so you have to click on selected scope value. Click on business unit. It will ask us to select BU. Now select another business unit. This point we discussed as a part of primary ledger related setup. Okay, I'm selecting this AOL US business unit. Click on say save and close. Now you can do the setups. You can enable and you can assign your primary ledger to this view. And if you want to set up for other business units, same process. Now click on the selected scope. That's how you can do for multiple BUs. But now anyway, we'll set to our BU so that whenever you click on any one of these functions, it will directly navigate to our BU. Google US business unit. Say apply and go to task. Done. So say save and close. Any questions, please? Done. Fine. That's all about setting business unit business functions. Any questions from anyone, please? If no questions, we can go forward. Fine. Now we'll see how to create the employee user. Okay, we'll see how to create the employee user. So I'll take the point here. Say, one second. So create employee user. So already we discussed to create employee user what we require. We require LE. We require BU. So we are ready with legal entity and business unit. When you say BU is required to, for the business unit you have to set the business functions also. Okay, so if you want to get ready with LE, BUs and all, definitely primary ledger also should be ready, but that you no need to select at the time of employee user creation. You have to select LE and business unit. Say for example I am creating the business unit, employee user called as, okay, I'm just creating the business unit called as employee user called as, I'll just create one employee with this name, Lakshman. When we are creating this employee, we have to select LE. When you select LE, what system will do is, this LE is this LE is based on this LE, which country payrolls we are running, it will verify. Okay, that means when you are creating the any employee, system has to understand, okay, system has to understand that employee we have under which registration, that is LE. Okay, for this LE is supporting which payroll, which country payroll also system will verify, that we call as LDZ. LDZ stands for legislative data group. Which will represent specific country payroll. So when you create employee, we have to assign the legal entity to employee so that system will understand, okay, so this employee is employed by this registration. LE creation time we have seen, right? So one is reporting, okay, payroll and statutory reporting. The second one is employees. So this employee, okay, this employee is just employed by this LE, this registration. And when this employee is employed by this LE and that employee payrolls are running under which country, for each country payrolls we create LDZ, legislative data group. That means when we create any employee, system will look for 2 points. The employee is employed by which registration, which legal entity. Under that registration, the employee comes under which payroll. The 2 points we have to specify. Okay, so when we assign the LE to employee, system will verify that LE is supporting which legislative data group. So that means before you select LE for any employee, you have to create legislative data group for specific country. That legislative data group you have to assign to LE. Then if you assign that LE to employee, then system will allow us to create the employee user. Okay, what we have to do? We have to create LDZ, legislative data group, which represents specific country payroll. This LDZ we have to assign to LE. That means system will understand with this. That means for this payroll, this LE we will have a payroll reporting, and this LE we have to assign to employee. When we are assigning when you are creating employee, LE need to be assigned. Which LE we have to assign to employee? To which LE already legislative data group is assigned. Otherwise, just you have legal entity. If you are trying to assign to employee, the employee definition will look for which legislative data group is associated with this LE. If legislative data group is not associated with the legal entity, by using that legal entity you cannot create the employee. If you are just assigning this, then system will understand, okay, this employee is employed by which LE, and for that employee with which legislative data group payrolls will be running. This complete meaning the employee definition will get. So for that reason, first we have to create the legislative data group which is specific to country payrolls. Each country we have to create the separate LDZ to run the payrolls. The each LDZ you have to associate with the specific legal entity under which registration, under which entity you are running that payroll. That legal entity only you have to assign to employee. So if you are going to do the implementation, say HCM, finance, SCM, definitely the HCM people will create these LDZ definitions and they'll be assigning this LDZ to legal entities. If HCM is not going to be implemented, so in that case we should complete it. If you are going to implement just financials also, employee definitions required. Okay, the basic employee definition is required. If you want to create employee definition, this setup need to be completed. LDZ is required. LDZ need to be associated with LE. That LE only you have to assign to employee. So that is the reason you may implement, may not implement HCM. Still, this setup you have to complete. Even just for finance implementation also, this setup you have to complete. Otherwise, you cannot create employee user. If you don't create employee user, you cannot create employee site, supplier sites. That point already we discussed. So now what we are going to do is, first we are going to create, okay, legislative data group. After creating the legislative data group, what we have to do? We have to assign legislative data group to LE. Assign, okay, legislative data group, nothing but LDZ. Generally, normally we call it as this as LDZ only. In short, LDZ to legal entity. So by assigning that legal entity, we have to create the employee user. So this is a point we have to understand. Any questions here to understand this point, please? It's a simple. Okay.
Lakshman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lakshman. Yeah. So this. In R12 when we give LE, we give however the company is registered for tax with the government, we give those information in.
That is a point. In an EBS case, you no need to compare this. There is no point to compare. That is the reason I am not talking about that comparison. So in EBS, when you are creating employee, it's not mandatory you have to select LE, right? That definition and process totally different. You cannot correlate with the employee. You cannot correlate with the EBS. So in EBS, what we do? We'll create employee and we'll create user separately and we'll assign this employee to user. That's a totally different.
No, but in employee we give payroll wage code combination. And,
that is not mandatory. That is not mandatory. That is not mandatory, right? Without specifying any payroll and all the information, you can create employee. Now we are not working on HCM to go to drill down those points very detailed level. Here, to work on, when we are working on financials, what is the dependency we got, we are discussing. That's it.
So how is this LDG related to the government? Is it some kind of an interactive thing with the government, or it is just locally or available only in the cloud? That just like a data set, it is a data group. Is it like in that concept?
Yeah, this is a system function to manage specific country payroll data separately. That's all. If you are running the business in 10 countries and if you are running the payrolls for 10 countries business, you have to create 10 LDGs. So each LD payroll information need to be reported to government, right? How we connect with the government with the registration? That is the reason the LE we have to map with the LDG. So if you map this LDG1 with LE1, this LDG, sorry, I written wrong. LDG. This LDG, this country, this may be for this LDG may be for US. This US payroll, okay, reporting will do through this LE1, where LE1 is US LE. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lakshan, is this LDG anywhere related or similar to business group in our?
No. So in business group, we maintain the employees' information. We don't create some definition for payroll data within the business group. Okay, it's not like business group employee information here. Only it's for people's data as a payroll data to just maintain the specific country payroll data. When you talk about business group, so one business group you can use for multiple countries also. There are different solutions which you can implement. Each country you can create separate business group in EBS, or else for multiple countries also you can have one business group. But when it comes to legislative data group, it is a mandatory you have to create the legislative data group only country specific. Okay. So these are the points we have to understand when you talk about employee user. If you have a legal entity, that legal entity directly you cannot associate with employee. So that legal entity, the legislative data group should be available for the specific country legal entity. That legislative data group need to be assigned to LE. That LE only you can assign to employee, then that would be the meaningful definition in the system. That's how system will understand that employee falls under which employment, the registration, and the employee falls under which payroll process. That's it. Fine, we'll go and see how to create the legislative data group and how to assign the legislative data group to legal entity. Finally, how to create the employee user by selecting the LE and to BU. These are the very simple definitions. We'll go through it and we'll move on to next step. Fine. So these setups, the legislative data group and the assignments, okay, these are completely related to HCM functions. It's not mandatory you have to do from the project only. from FSM homepage directly you can navigate and you will be able to do it. Okay, these are not project specific, it's a commonly these can be defined. And we didn't select HCM also into our project, but the dependency task they'll provide even if you don't select. Basically this legislative data group and these setups related to HCM, even if you don't select HCM into your project, still the task will be available, which are dependency tasks Oracle will provide within the project along with any offering. Or else you can complete those setups directly from this search homepage. You can search from here. We want to create legislative data group, right? Search for legislative data group. There will be task called as manage legislative data groups. Click on manage legislative data groups and click on create. It's a very simple definition. Give the name. So we are using the company name as Google, so we can give the same. Google US. Okay, legislative data group. So this legislative data group we are creating for which country? US. Select it. So once you select country, system will default the currency automatically. So cost allocation structure, okay, which can be used for payroll process, right? The cost accounting flex field we have, cost allocation flex field we have in EBS also as a part of payroll. The same, the same people will create the structure they can associate here. Say save and close. Just say submit. So this is how, like, just we have to create the legislative data group. Just provide name, select country. That would be enough. Now the next task is we have to assign legislative data group to legal entity. To assign legislative data group to legal entity, you can search for the task called as legal entity HCM information. That means legal entity you are associating with HCM information. HCM information, as a part of HCM we have HR payroll, right? That means with the payroll, your payroll means LDZ. That same LDZ only you can call as statutory unit also. I mean, so this is a task we have to use legal entity HCM information. Just click on search. You could see the task called as manage legal entity HCM information. Just click on this task. So now we want to associate, okay, which legal entity with legislative data group. That legal entity we have to find from here. We already created our legal entity, right? That legal entity we have to find first. So our LE name is Google USA primary ledger, right? Just click on search. So this is our legal entity. This legal entity only we want to map with US legislative data group. So to assign this LE to LDZ, just click on this LE name. Okay, and click on edit and click on update or correct, any function we can use. Reason, no reason, just you can say okay. You can select some action reason if you want to specify. Now these fields will open. Now just select payroll statutory unit. The payroll statutory unit and LDZ both are same. Payroll statutory unit. Within that you can associate your LDZ with our legal entity. Our legal entity you can associate with the LDZ. You have to map these two. So what is our legislative data group name? Google US legislative data group. Select, say okay. That's all. Okay. Now what we are doing? We are assigning legislative data group to our legal entity. This legislative data group we are assigning to our legal entity. Now this legal entity you can assign to our employee definition record. Okay, that's all. Without assigning this legislative data group to legal entity, if you try to create employee, it will give the message there is no valid legislative data group is associated with this legal entity, and you cannot create the employee definition. That's how you'll get message. You should complete this setup. Even this is not part of our financials. This is how we have a dependency. If you are if you guys are if you are implementing HCM also for your client, anyway this would be done by HCM people as a part of HCM solution. We no need to do anything. If HCM is not going to be implemented, even we are working for financials or SCM, we have to complete this setup as a mandatory. Just click on submit, then say yes. Okay, so just we done with these setups. Just click on done. We created legislative data group. That legislative data group we associated or say we mapped with our LD. Now the next step is we have to create the employee user. Okay, we have to create the employee user. So implementation user we created. I Any question?
Yeah, Lakshman, that you showed that assignment of LDG to LE and creation of LDG. But where in that do we communicate the payroll information with the government? Is there an option available there to do that?
See, there are many setups which HCM people will do by selecting that legislative data group which we defined. That's how the
Okay, so it is through the HCM. Okay.
Yeah, as a part of HCM solution, they'll do all the rest of setup. Say for example, we are creating the business unit as a part of finance. So for business unit, we'll start doing many setups. Based on that, the transaction process can be happen for the BU, right? The same way, just we create a legislative data group which represents specific country payroll. Based on that, they have to do complete solution related setups. Yeah, that's how that happens. Fine. So we created implementation user from security console. Now we have to create employee user. Employee user you can create from HCM, right? From HCM you have to create the employee user. Fine. So employee user we can create from HCM. So to navigate to HCM function, we have a separate task. Now we'll go and create the employee user. We'll see how to create. Just come out from this page, and from here or from project, from any just place, maybe from project or directly from this search page, you can search for the task called as manage users. This task will allow us to create the employee user. If you want to create the employee user, this is the task we have to use. This task you can find from the project also. From anywhere you can create this task. Okay, so click on manage users. If you want to find out existing employees, you can search from here. If you want to create the new employee, click on create. Okay, and one more point, this page is basic employee definition page. If you want to associate the complete employee related information with this employee, that has to be done from HCM core employee definition form. That's totally different. As a part of implementation, we use this form only. This employee definition will be reflecting in that core form of employee definition, and there if they want to add additional information which is not possible from here, we'll see that here more or less we can provide the basic employee definition information. We'll see that. So just let's try to understand how to create the employee user. Later I'll be adding few more points which are connected with this. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Lakshman, sorry to stop you. A user is different from employee, right? So we are in the create user form. Is it employee creation?
Employee creation for employee only will give the username. That's how that employee is user. We are calling as employee user.
Okay, okay. Now, from EBS perspective, you have a separate user form,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
in sysadmin.
Yeah.
So
In
I was confused in
yeah,
that angle.
admin you create employee user, and HRMS you create employee. Employee will assign to user. Here, at the time of employee creation, if the employee require access to the application, definitely we have to provide the username. Okay, at the time of employee creation only, the employee you want system access with which name that you can provide here as a username.
Okay, so everything is done in this one form.
Yes, yes, yes. From here you can do it.
Okay.
Okay, the same username will be available from security console. We'll see that. We'll go through this process. Then, if you have any questions, we'll discuss. Before completing, we may get many questions on the same concept. So after completing, if you have any questions, if anything is not clear, we'll discuss. Okay. Here last name, employee last name. Here we'll go with the Google only, person name or username or everything. Okay, I think you can give it. Just these are the person employee name, employee details, but just I'm entering the company name. And here you have to provide the username. Say Google. I want to give the login name for this employee as a Google, and you have to select the person type. So here you could see many person types. So by default you could see only two types: contingent worker, employee. Rest of all are created the through lookups. Okay, the person type lookup we have through that. The people who are practicing on HCM offering, they just created all these you can just see in the vision environment only. If you look at fresh instance, you can see only these two values. Now we are going to, if you are going to create the contract employee, you can select contingent worker. If you are going to create the employee, okay, permanent employee, you can select value as a employee. Just select person type as employee. Now system will ask us to specify who is the legal employer. Legal employer is nothing but legal entity. Okay, under which this employee comes under which legal employer, nothing but legal entity. Okay, legal entity can act as a legal employer as well as payroll statutory unit, payroll reporting. So that aspect they given the name as legal employee. So select our legal entity. The legal entity which you are selecting here, that should be mapped with the LDZ. Then only that legal entity can be accepted in this definition. So here I'll go with otherwise. So you just tell me, any one of you created any legal entity in this system? Anybody created legal entity, please?
Yeah, I have created
Tell me the name.
AOL. Yes.
AOL. Okay, fine. I'm selecting AOL. See, the message is no legislative data group is associated with this legal employer. Select a different legal employee. So that is the reason we did the mapping. So you have to select the LE which is associated with the legislative data group. Select our legal entity. Say OK. and select business unit. And here we have to understand one point. Let me verify what is the search criteria here. Why it is not responding? Let me close and reopen. Just click on advanced. Our fields, business unit name already we have here. So Google search should come. Yep. So select our business unit. Okay. So now you can associate job for this employee and grade for this employee, and this employee is working for which department, and location for this employee, and who is the supervisor, manager, and other details also. Okay, the resource role and all other information you can provide here. So that's how you can create the employee. Now the point here what we have to understand is, so here at the time of legal entity creation, sorry, employee user creation, the business unit you have to select as a mandatory. So I'm selecting Google US business unit. So if you select business unit here, don't think this user can have access to this business unit. That is not correct. As a part of employee user creation, business unit is mandatory. That is the reason we are selecting. Just because of the BU, we are selecting the BU for this employee, this user is not going to have access to business unit. For which business unit user require access, for which application related process, that is separate setup we have to complete. As a part of GL we have seen, we assigned roles called as general accountant, general accounting manager, controller, right? So in that way, if you want to allow this user, the Google user, to work on payables related roles we have to assign, to those roles we have to assign the business unit. Which business unit you are assigning to those roles, that user can have access to that business unit related process only, not to this business unit which you are selecting at user creation. Okay, this is a very important point we have to remember. If you are assigning one business unit here, that user is not going to have access to that BU until unless the roles will be assigned, and to those roles specific BU will be assigned. So then where this business unit can be useful, if this user is going to work for expense reports, this user can book the expense reports only for this business unit. Okay, that's how the default will be applicable when you are working on payables or receivables or purchasing or project accounting, any other applications. Which business unit you are associating that application specific roles, for those business units only this user will be able to have access, not to this. Okay, we'll see that point, but just as a point, make a note. Okay, so just at the time of employee user creation, business unit is mandatory. That is the reason we are mentioning. Generally, the employee is working for which BU, that BU only will be selecting. Because of that BU, the employee is not going to have access to all the applications. That is not possible. That has to be done through role provisioning. Through specific application roles, we have to assign the specific BU. That's how user can have access. Not because we are assigning business unit to that user. Hope this point is clear. Any questions on this, please? That's all. This is the information you have to provide. If you click on save and close, employee user will be created. The same employee user name is Google. This username will be available in security console. If you notice here, we are not setting any password. Okay, so here we have a notification preferences, where system will generate the password, it will send, and all those notifications are not set up here. So normally what we do is, you can keep it enabled, even nothing will happen. So what system will do is, whatever this employee user we are creating as a part of HCM function, manage users is HCM related task. So whatever the employee users you create by using the HCM function, so that user's information will sync with the security console. Now automatically this user will be populated in the security console. You can go to security console. From security console you can set the password for this user, and from there you can assign the roles, and rest of process we can follow from there only. Any questions here, please?
Lakshman, one question. So, in general implementations, um, uh, a consultant should be both an employee and a user, right? Because only employee can do testing for the transactions, or can do the transactions in the test instance or any instance.
See,
Correct?
implementation time, what we do is, basically we do this configuration and test our pre-prod, not prod. That environment, yes, first we'll create implementation user, will do the setups. Once legal entity and legal entity and business units are ready, we'll create the employee user. Since there is a test environment, with any name you can create the employee user, that will work. When it comes to production, in the production, first you have to create the implementation user. Okay, implementation user. Once you are ready with the legal entity and business unit, you require employee user. So in that case, if you are implementing HCM, all employees information available as a part of HCM solution. So internally you can speak with the business, and you can use, okay, the any one of the finance person name, and you can use as a employee user definition. That's how you can complete the setups. We should not create dummy employee users in the production environment, right? So the existing employee
Right.
using to complete the setups. Done. Any questions, please? Okay, so this is how we have
I think you're covering in expenses, but just curious, where is the expense account here for the employee user?
We have to set separately.
Separately, okay.
Yeah, I'll show you, since you have this question.
Okay.
I'll take you through now itself. Yeah, fine. So just click on save and close.
Yeah. Also, one thing I noticed, like on this employee record, we don't have a manager, right? Employee supervisor or jobs assigned. Whereas in EBS, we see that at the employee record.
You have to see all the points I explained also.
Is it set up somewhere?
Okay. We have that.
Okay, that's fine. Just asking. Okay.
See, if you are just,
It's a different form then.
yeah, no, just the point I explained. If when I'm just explaining, if you are just attending the session where you are noticing everything, then you don't find these questions. So as a part of definition, I explained, I shown this is a job, this is a grade, this is a position, this is a manager, nothing but supervisor. The fields I just taken through. Okay, that's how we have to create the employee. Then the same employee you can find from here. Okay, search for employee. Employee name is Google. Search. If you want to go with advanced search, you can click on that. You can find it. So this is the name we given. Okay. So now, if you want to set expense account, you just select this record. Go to actions. Here, manage expense information. From this option, you can set expense default expense account, and you can provide. So where you want to remit that payment, say for office, that address also you can provide here. Okay, this will be covering as a part of Fusion expense. Okay, now again, if you want to go to employee record, you can click on the name, it will open the employee record, or else you can click on manage users. The same employee definition will be open. If you want to do any modifications, you can do at any point of time. So these are the points, right? We discussed job, grade, okay, the manager, nothing but supervisor, the department. Okay, this is all we have. Fine. Okay, done.
Lakshman, the assignments logic is not here, is it? When the person is starting like that.
Yeah, that is a complete employee record that you have to manage from HCM core function. This is a basic employee definition.
Okay.
See, now we created employee using, I'll just see, we created by using the manage user, right? That's the task name also manage users. From this we created employee called as Google. Now this should be available in the security console. Okay, security console. And again same, this Google would be available in core HRMS employee window also. They'll just get that what are the information we given here, Google employee. Okay, within this, in that core HCM, so I'm writing as HRMS, HCM, it's HRMS, HCM, both are same. In the HCM, they'll be adding additional information. If you create employee here, say Google employee, you created in core HCM employee creation form. Google you created. So whatever the employee you are creating here, Google, that will be available in security console, or else whatever you create from manage users, that would be available. If you create here, let's talk about it. So you created a manage users, the same manage users employee will be available in the core HCM employee page, so that you can add additional details. Other side, the same would be available in the security console. Say you create, instead of creating manage users, okay, the employee you created from directly core HCM employee definition page, where you can provide lot of information. If you create from here, in that scenario also, this what are the employee you are creating, that would be available in manage users task, and the same would be available in security console. That means wherever you create employee, maybe by using the manage users task or core HCM employee page definition, that would be available in security console. In security console only you can set the password and you can assign the roles. Even if you create from core HCM function, that would be available in manage users to just set up that required information within that page. So that's how the information will sync. Fine. Now we created from manage users. As a part of finance implementation or SCM implementation, this task only we use. We don't go with this core HCM employee user definition pages, okay, which is the complete definition of employee. That has to be done by HCM people. Okay, done. So we created employee. Now we'll go and find that employee from security console. Go to security console. Click on security console. And go to user tab. From here you can find that Google employee. Okay, whatever we created by using HCM function. Okay, from there whatever the definitions are done, that will sync with security console. Okay, there is auto synchronization, that information would be available here. So search for employee called as Google. Search. So Google INC. Okay, you could see, so person name, person number, and business unit name which we given. And this is information makes the difference when you compare with implementation user. how do you identify the user is employee user or implementation user? When you find any user, if you see this person number and business unit, then you should understand that that user is employee user. When you look at our ERP tree user, you don't find this information, person number and business unit. Reason that we created from security console. That's how you can differentiate. That's how you can understand the user is created as implementation user or employee user. At the time of employee user, the BU is mandatory, right? And legal entity also. That's how system will display. Now go to our employee user.
So when you create from employee screen and enter the user which is already existing, then it should throw error saying that user already exists because it's not LOV.
Yeah, if you created that from HCM function only, it will be showing as exist. If you created from security console and now you are creating from HCM, manage users, employee users, it won't throw any message. Okay, it won't throw.
Then that means that it will port that implementation user to the employee.
No, it will allow. It will allow. Say I am creating ABC as a user from security console. I created.
Yeah.
Now if I go and create from manage employee use, this employee users, it will allow you. Okay, it will allow you. So because the record specifications will be different here, BU mapping and all. That's how it works. Ultimately, finally, when you are going to use it with the same one name, you cannot have two users. You can just the whatever, like if you are creating from employee, that means this implementation user you don't want to use, you can disable or you can delete. That's how you can do normally.
Right, but when you're trying to create a new employee and trying to assign a user
no,
there,
so it will allow you. It will allow you, but the assignment is not possible for existing users. Employee definition you cannot map. Okay, mapping is not possible.
okay, that means if the Google user login is already there as an implementation user, I'm trying to create an employee and by mistake I have given Google again over there. So it will create a second user or it will throw an error or
it will allow you to create. When you try to find here, you don't find the employee user because that is you created as a second user. It will allow you to create. You don't find here. If your requirement is you want to go with employee user, before that the Google user which you created from security console, you delete it, then create it. Then it will be created and it will sync and you can find from here also. Otherwise, you can create but you don't find from here. That's how you just will be experienced. Yeah. Fine. Just this is a point we have to understand when we talk about that. So we created a user. Now we have to set the password for this user. So to set the password, you can go to actions. Okay. Say reset password. Select manually change the password. And you can provide the password. Say reset password. So this Google user is ready. Now what we'll do is from now we'll ignore employee ERP tree user and we'll go with the Google user. So we'll do all our implementation related setups and all the setups from Google only. For that, what we do is, as of now, whatever the roles are assigned to employee user, so ERP tree user, we will assign all to employee user, Google user, and we'll ignore ERP tree user and we'll proceed with a Google user. So what are the roles are assigned to employee ERP tree user? We assign 8 roles. GL 5 roles which allow for transaction and very basic roles for implementation 3, application implementation consultant, IT security manager and employee. So now we'll go and assign those 8 roles to this Google user so that we can ignore ERP tree user and we can proceed for further configuration with Google user only. Okay, just click on Google.
So once we change everything to Google user, we don't have to assign any tasks in the project to Google user, correct? We can just like that go to that project and we can choose task and do it.
No, we will change. Project assignment will change to Google user. Okay, and whether you have to assign the tasks or not, that's totally optional. It's not mandatory. The task, it's not mandatory.
Okay.
You have to assign the offering or option or a task to specific user to perform the setups. That's completely optional. Okay, fine. Just click on edit. So we'll complete it. I'll take you through the process of auto provisioning also. I'll take you through that. So first we'll complete this setup. So assign all the roles. So application implementation consultant. Don't assign the roles called as application implementation administrator or application implementation manager. So these roles will have less privileges when you compare with this role. So application implementation consultant only will have a full privileges. This role will have full privileges when you compare with this manager or administrator. Remember that. Okay, by mistake also don't select those. You should select application implementation consultant role only. Okay, just select and say assign. Assigned. Assign IT security manager role. Just assign. Assign other basic role called as employee. Now from this user we'll be working on GL also. Okay, as a part of our course. So we'll assign GL roles also to this user. Okay, immediately we are not going to work. Okay, after completing all the application we'll be working on GL. Already we have seen which roles we have for GL. The same roles will assign to this user also. So those roles are general, accountant, and next role is general accounting manager. The other role is CFO, chief financial officer, and controller, right, and financial analyst. Any other roles we have to assign? Not required. We're done. So these GL related roles are specific to application related process. To record the transactions only we'll be using, right? So for that reason we'll go and assign our primary ledger to those 5 roles. So how to perform the task? What is the task we use to assign? What task we can use to assign primary ledger to any GL role? What is the task name? Anyone please? Already we completed, right? Not last prior session.
Data access for user.
Data access for users. By using the task, we can assign our primary ledger to any role, so that you can perform from search home page or else from the project. Well, let's do from this home page itself. So task name is data access for users. Here data access is nothing but ledger access. For user means user related roles. So click on manage data access for users. Just click on create. Select username. Select role. CFO. Security contest is data access set. Ledger name is Google USA primary ledger. Now click on add. Just tab out, it will fetch. Controller role. What we want to assign to this role? Data access set. Nothing but ledger. We know, like against every ledger system create default data access set. Google USA primary ledger. Click on add. Financial analyst. Data access set. So we have two more roles. So select role called as general accountant. Click on add. Select role called as general accounting manager. Security contest is data access set. Select primary ledger. Say save and close. Okay, what we did the same, will go and make a note. So create employee user, yes we created. Then assign required roles to user. Provide data access for users. After that, the recommended task is run LDAP job. We have to submit LDAP job. Go to schedule process, which will navigate us to ESS job page, Enterprise Scheduler Service job page. Click on schedule new process. Search for LDAP. Click on search. Select job called as retrieve latest LDAP changes. The purpose is to synchronize users and roles within the roles. What are the grants we have in LDAP directory. Click on submit. This job will run at instance level. So now, just now I submitted. Immediately if you try to do it, it will block your job. It will block and it will keep in the queue to run after completing this job. But basically, so we don't need to run same time, like you assign something and I assign. So if I'm going to run this job, you don't need to run it. That's how it works. Fine, done. It takes some time to complete, that we know already, we have seen. Now what we'll do is, so now we'll go and assign our project to Google user. Okay, go to our implementation project, click on overview. So this is our project. Open the project. This is a project basic information. Here you can click on edit. Okay, assign our project to our user. So done. Now for ERP3, there's nothing. Now we can log into the instance as a Google user. Okay. From now we'll complete all the setups from this user only. Okay. Now you can log into the instance as a Google user. Just 1 second. Yep. Now project also will default it to this user since we reassigned that project to this user. So the first name undo the last name, that's how it's displaying. You can click on that name and you can click on setup and maintenance. Manage projects. If you click on overview, our project would get defaulted since this project is assigned to this user. Here actual username, login name, this is assigned to. This is just display name based on first name, last names. So done. Okay, from here, what are the setups we do? We'll just continue with this user only. Any questions from anyone, please?
Lakshman, now this Google user can go and deactivate the ERP3 user.
Yes. Because we have access to security console, right? Who has access to security console, they can take any action on any user. Full privileges to security console. Because we assign IT security manager role.
So if there is no control over, no security over another user that has security console, right?
Do you have security in the EBS in sysadmin related to users? No. Alright. If anybody has access to...
I think you can go and...
No, 1 second. If you have access to system administrator responsibility, you'll have full privileges. You can play with any user, like anything, just you can do it. Okay, here also same. Security console is similar to system administrator. So that is the reason, if anybody have access to this, any user they can find, any user they can here we can delete the user also. You can inactivate or you can reset the password. Those actions you can perform on the user. Okay. Any questions?
But the topic is...
Sorry? I'm sorry, there is some background noise. Temporary speaking. Any questions from others, please? If no background noise, please ask questions. That's a request.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Lakshman, I have one question. Do we get any questions, any preparation for the interview about financials?
What questions? Like, see there here hardly there are 4 or 5 questions you can see in case of fusion, like or else max primary 10 questions. Like rest everything they'll be asking by comparing with the EBS only. I'll be covering in the end of the course. I'll just take you through what are the generic questions which you come across. It's completely they'll be asking based on EBS. So this is how this is different from EBS, or what are the overall differences between EBS finance, RTOL and Fusion Financials or Cloud Financial. This is how you will find the questions.
Okay, because when I was watching Oracle R12 EBS video, you mentioned that giving some training, how to take interview and how to answer some questions. So that's why I asked if we have something like this for cloud also.
Yeah, cloud, see, like if you in EBS, like say what is the primary ledger? That EBS we have in Fusion we have. What is the balance and segment value? What is use of the primary balance and segment label? What do you mean by legal entity? What is a P2P cycle? What is a O2C cycle? These and all we have to learn from EBS, which is a basic learning. The same will be applicable here. If something is new, like whatever you see as new, that definitely you have to understand from here. Already if you know EBS, this anyway you can understand what is new also we are discussing. Other side even anyone can understand, and wherever some difference is there or some relevance is there, we are discussing. Once we complete the course, just you will come to know everything. But anyway, I'll take you through the very generic questions on Fusion. When you have experience or knowledge on EBS, and when you are learning this Fusion, when you go for interview, what sort of questions you can hear from them, that I'll take you through.
Okay, thank you.
Fine. Any other questions?
Hey, Lakshman, this is Uday.
Yeah,
I'm from the previous batch, just joined today. How do I get access to the system?
So Uday, like I think you sent an email and I replied to that. I shared this instance as well as videos also. Yesterday I shared. You
Oh,
check it once.
oh, okay. Sorry, I did not check it. Then I'll check that one. Sorry.
Sent a mail, right? So I
Thank you.
replied to that. So please check it. If you
Thank you.
have any issue, like please let me know. You can drop me email on the same erp3.com.
Sure, Lakshman. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, fine. Any other questions from anyone, please? Okay, since no questions, we can wind up the session for today. We'll connect tomorrow and we'll continue from here. Okay. Thank you all. Have a good day and good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.